Mike Bailey and Konosuke Takeshita have developed great chemistry over the past 8 years, starting with a brief run with DDT's KOD tag titles at the end of 2016. While good as friends, they've been much better as foes. Their first 3 singles matches took place in DDT over the next 2 years, when that was still Bailey's primary promotion. While all worth watching, the very good July 2nd, 2017 meeting stood out more than the subsequent 2, with much higher effort due to being a main event with Takeshita's KOD openweight title on the line. Though then 17-year-old prodigy Takeshita momentarily captured the jokey DDT Ironman Heavy Metal title 2 weeks before he even made his pro debut on August 18, 2012, and celebrated his 21st birthday with the first of 5 runs with DDT's openweight title, he has improved so much in the past few years that the younger, skinny version who would work a body part, uses strikes and a handful of power moves is barely recognizable compared to the dynamic all-around great we see today. In their early matches, Takeshita largely focused on being the solid performer, leaving the far more experienced and advanced Bailey to provide most of the excitement. Takeshita is now a well-rounded opponent who fully utilizes his great athleticism, mixing size, strength, and speed to be a great base who can keep up with the opponent's movement and deliver a fearsome beating with brutal suplexes and heavy strikes. He does everything well, and is credible doing any style he needs to. Takeshita's best matches are against athletic high flyers, but Bailey isn't one of those spot monkeys that just jumps around, relying on his opponent to shape the match. He's the one leading these matches, and he makes his opponent look great with fantastic bumps, while having enough impact on his strikes that he's believable against a heavyweight. Certainly, the continued improvement in the series largely stems from the overall improvement and increased confidence of Takeshita, though Bailey has gotten better as well. Bailey has been one of the most consistently exciting and excellent wrestlers of the past decade. With his persona of the honorable martial artist and family man, he feels like an upgraded modern version of Ricky Steamboat. Steamboat was a smart wrestler who executed really well and made everything the opponent did look better than it should, but his offense was always somewhat lacking, as his martial arts were largely chops, and his high flying was largely the dropkick and body attack. Bailey obviously comes from an era where a lot more emphasis is placed on what you do than how or why you do it. He's far more athletic and innovative, one of the wrestlers that definitely should be doing the junior style he is doing. A 4th degree Taekwondo black belt, Bailey is arguably the best kicker in pro wrestling. Certainly no one has his variety or Andy Hoog level of dexterity. He hits hard enough, and he's able to make up for what he lacks in size by utilizing his speed to beat the opponent to the strike or avoid and counter. As a high flyer, Bailey is near the top as well. Bailey is someone who tries to be fairly unique offensively, mostly using his own moves rather than doing every cool move he's capable of performing. While most high flying lacks the impact to seem worth the risk, Bailey's knee-based attacks appear quite brutal. The path for a Canadian wrestler who was born after the country's last major promotion, Stampede Wrestling, closed for the second time in 1989 is arduous enough. Bailey has had an even tougher time receiving the adulation he deserves because the predictable trajectory to the US didn't work out for him. Crossing the border without a work visa to avoid having to cancel an Evolve appearance in 2016 that he thought the paperwork would be completed in time for, Bailey was banned from the USA until 2022. Bailey became a nomad who had standout matches wherever he appeared, but lacked the major exposure of a consistent large-scale promotion to really break out. Regularly wrestling the best Europe and Japan had to offer for the next 4 years really helped round out his game though, turning him into a wrestler who could have a useful match with just about anyone. COVID largely cut off those markets, so it took until the past few years, when he signed with TNA and was once again active all around the world, for his name value to begin to catch up to his fantastic ring work. Bailey was able to rekindle his program against Takeshita in North America. Their 4th match on June 10, 2022 was where they really took things to another level. Despite the hundreds in attendance for the small West Coast pro show that took place in a dinky hall, where chandeliers actually impeded some of their top rope moves, they still treated it like a big main event, and gave all they had to deliver an excellent match. This mindset impressed the thousands around the world when WCP uploaded the match to YouTube. While it didn't make as many Match of the Year lists as it should have, the video wound up reaching 77,000 fans, becoming the most popular and well-regarded match in promotion history. The much improved, filled-out athletic powerhouse Takeshita really began to contribute on a more equal level here. He did a far better job of both setting Bailey up and answering with his own impressive offense. It was a far more developed match, with a lot more counters than we saw from them in DDT. This match was the most similar to what they did in Maple Leaf Pro, an all-out sprint with a great deal of urgency, where they had to be on top of their game at all times or things would quickly go awry. Their fifth singles match on January 8, 2023 came in the final of perhaps the final PWG Battle of Los Angeles. While a slight step backwards from the excellent WCP meeting, it still felt like it overachieved, given it was the fourth match of the night for Bailey and the third for Takeshita. Bailey is an Iron Man with great cardio, but it always helps to not have wrestled 3 15-plus minute matches earlier in the night when going into a 27-minute main event everyone has high hopes for. Bailey had previously lost the finals both times he entered, in 2015 to Zack Sabre Jr. and in 2022 to Daniel Garcia. This time he really earned his victory by way of marathon, wrestling a total of 1 hour, 16 minutes, 54 seconds when he finally defeated Takeshita in a very good match that was surprisingly still quite aggressive and energetic. Bailey was super motivated to be headlining a sold-out pay-per-view in his home country, and given Takeshita has been working in AEW the past few years, he's probably forgotten what wrestling in front of a packed house feels like, since Tony Khan would rather scale an NBA arena down to 1/5 of its size and still only sells 2/3 of that, rather than booking a building that's reasonable for the amount of tickets AEW will actually sell. The undercard of Forged in Excellence number 1 on October 19, 2024 from St. Clair College in Windsor, Ontario had a worthwhile opening match where the Canadian trio of El Phantasma, Josh Alexander, and Stu Grayson defeated Alex Zane, Rocky Romero, and Trevor Lee, and one of the worst punk-paced matches of the year where Bully Ray cringily talked his way through what purported to be a table match against fellow WWE reject Raj Desi. The standout aspect of the crazy hyperspeed main event was the amazing pace that Bailey pushed tonight. This whole match was wrestled 2 gears higher than normal, and these two are already among the most consistent hard-working wrestlers around. The execution was tremendous because they were able to maintain their usual high quality despite doing all their sequences that much faster. This wasn't a strategic match, it was an instinctual work rate match that was trying to swoop you up with a speed and urgency and maintain enough momentum to never let you go. Thankfully, this match actually wasn't bogged down by the tropes of modern wrestling, such as the corny no-defense exchanges and phony theatrical overselling. It instead featured 2 performers who made you believe that they were actually trying to win the match. There was little of the typical jokey writhing around while the opponent didn't bother to attack their incapacitated foe. Instead, there was actual urgency to defend themselves, trying to avoid or counter the opponent's offense at all costs put over the danger of what the opponent was throwing at them a lot more than taking a nap or doing some silly spasming would have. This match was just so much faster than pretty much anything we ever see, largely due to the all-out effort rather than the actual speed of the wrestlers. Granted, Bailey is certainly one of the fastest behind Lio Rush. However, there are plenty of speedier guys than Takeshita who don't have the desire to go all out, and are happy that the lazy and phony WWE style has deluded so many fans into believing dead air makes for a lot better TV programming than it does radio. This was the pro wrestling equivalent of flyweight MMA in the best possible way, and the increased activity lended an air of credibility that is lacking in cooperative wrestling of all styles. There are a million fundamental holes in the way everyone approaches choreographed fighting that result in it never really feeling believable, whether or not they are using moves you actually might see in a real fight, but at least the urgency of a scrap was mostly here. Actually trying to beat the opponent to the proverbial punch provided some illusion of realism, while their phony offense and acrobatics provided a lot of exciting fireworks MMA can't deliver. Their consistent activity, and the scrambling nature where it often felt like both competitors were actually trying to do something, rather than just taking turns waiting for each other to get their moves in, elevated this above the typical cooperative exhibition this sort of spectacle would normally come off as. Comparing this fight that was actually wrestled with intensity and conviction to Takeshita's vastly overrated silly 3-way with Ricochet and Will Ospreay the previous weekend at AEW Wrestle Dream 2024 was like night and day. In that match, like every other 3-way match, they just kept watching and waiting. Several of the moves were cool when they finally got around to doing them, but it was more like cheerleading without all the practice required to keep the choreography to a reasonable speed. I'm sure any combination of the 3 could have had a very good singles match, but they were either staring at one another during the contrived 3-man segments, trying to make sure everyone was in the right place so they could start another multi-man spot, or having someone who should be up in a third of a second magically be incapacitated for 3 minutes. Alternating a wrestler out spared us the usual inactivity, but it was difficult to suspend disbelief when one wrestler was trying to hide so the fans wouldn't consider how nonsensical it was that they were all spending large chunks of the bout playing dead, while occasionally peeking over the apron so as to not miss their cue. Bailey vs. Takeshita looks less unbelievable than other matches of its type because the speed of the performances hid the choreography to some extent. Takeshita would try to slow things down to utilize his size and strength, but these momentary breaks allowed you to appreciate all the super fast and dynamic portions without dragging or seeming like the usual unrealistic inactivity. Takeshita holding out into Bailey obviously wasn't one of the countless highlights, but the brief headlock or even bear hug made the next burst seem all the more dynamic and impressive. The choreography became more apparent a few times they slowed down for no real reason. For instance, when Takeshita stopped Bailey's moonsault double knee drop on the apron by kicking Bailey off to the turnbuckle, Bailey stopped himself with his leg, but was just frozen there waiting for Takeshita to slowly get up so he could super kick him. Even though Bailey is one of the only wrestlers who can throw a super kick that looks like it actually does something, this was a segment that stood out because they momentarily wrestled in the typical lazy manner where there's no urgency to defend themselves. Most matches look like this the entire time, and while they are just plain bad, they can often get away with that because when everything is done so sluggishly, no particular cooperative moment stands out from the rest, and fans chalk it up to being WWE style. I enjoyed the striking in this match because both were doing different things and weren't just waiting for one another. Takeshita obviously has more weight of shot, but he often looks for one super heavy knockout blow and is slow to unleash it. Bailey gets his shots off so much quicker, and can thus win exchanges by beating Takeshita to the strike. The energy Bailey and Takeshita put into this match set it apart. There were several super fast and highly impressive sequences. Even though this wound up being a long main event, it was wrestled at the pace of a 12-minute sprint, so the near falls in the second half of the bout were more believable as potential finishes. Granted, modern main events never end, but they also don't have a bunch of bursts that feel like the start of the finishing segment. There are a lot of modern matches that feature next-level athleticism, and mostly consist of them throwing everything they have at one another, but this combined that with always feeling like an important match where both were going all out for the victory. Bailey feels more authentic than the other modern high flyers when it comes to doing things to win, rather than to check off boxes. This was certainly showy, with great explosive segments, but it felt like they were pushing themselves to attain something, rather than just putting on a meaningless show. Bailey hit a triangle moonsault, but the key early spot was Takeshita hitting the Death Valley bomb on the apron to start a neck attack. Bailey took some killer bumps, particularly on a released German suplex. One of several great explosive sequences saw Bailey land on his feet for a German suplex, hit a penalty kick into a standing moonsault knee drop that Takeshita avoided, and miss a spinning low kick. Bailey then backbody dropped his way out of the powerbomb, and this time hit the standing moonsault knee drop. Bailey busted out some newer, rarely used flying moves, including the double springboard corkscrew dive and the ultimate weapon leg drop. The match stalled out when Takeshita collapsed to the floor after Bailey hit the Canadian Destroyer. Bailey took forever to pursue him, then had a little hissy fit when he couldn't lift Takeshita because he was dead weight. The goofiest comeback followed, with Takeshita regaining consciousness to knock Bailey off the ring apron with a devastating blow Callis described as an 8-arm. Circumstances protecting the moves by preventing the finish is fine, when the circumstances themselves actually make sense. I assume Bailey was supposed to hit the top turnbuckle, rather than the ropes then the middle turnbuckle on Takeshita's reverse powerbomb, but it still looked impressive seeing him flung through the air like a sack of potatoes. Bailey's ultimate weapon may not have hit the way it was supposed to, but the camera changing angles just as the move should be connecting, and going to a camera where Takeshita's body was largely in the way may have been the real issue. Bailey tried to finish again with his flamingo driver, but Takeshita countered with his Hito Danashi driver. Takeshita knocked Bailey's mouthpiece out with a big forearm, landed 2 big knees, and one with raging fire. The announcing of the returning Mauro Ranallo was able to match the energy of the fighters, and Don Callis can add to a program when he isn't strapped with ill-conceived storylines that have no logic or continuity. The fact that he's finally stuck to the microphone, rather than pulling out his screwdriver, was one of the reasons Takeshita finally succeeded in having a great match. It's very exciting that a new promotion was able to deliver a match of this caliber on their first show. Yes, technically this is a revival, but no one involved in the Maple Leaf Wrestling that sold out to Vince McMahon 40 years ago has anything to do with it. It's just more of the usual marketing shenanigans, trying to capitalize on name value and nostalgia, rather than trust that there might actually be an audience for something that wasn't done better decades ago. Obviously, the success of this promotion going forward is largely going to be based on the willingness of larger promotions to continue lending their talents, because all of the names on the show were borrowed. Scott D'Amore promoted a better match in his first try than his former promotion TNA or any other American league has all year. D'Amore is hardly an infallible booker. He believes in the whole variety show concept of wrestling, and as long as wrestling insists on being vaudeville, we'll never get top to bottom shows like the All Japan Women Dream Slams or the first New Japan Super J Cup. That being said, at least D'Amore understands how to utilize the talent he has to deliver the type of match fans of that style might actually want to see. I'm confident that D'Amore could actually get some good matches out of Kyle O'Reilly, one of the best technical wrestlers in the world, rather than strapping him with a clown that's out there playing with himself, resulting in even O'Reilly's most ardent fans skipping all his current matches. D'Amore managed to book the only sometimes interesting US women's division by having Deonna Purrazzo in big matches with Jordynne Grace, where she had time to utilize her technical wrestling skill, whereas Tony Khan, who hasn't booked a good women's match in 2 years, seemingly can't tell Purrazzo from Atsushi Onita. The Lights Out gimmick may have helped Thunder Rosa vs. Britt Baker be a bit more passable than it otherwise would have been, given the less one can see of Britt's shoddy wrestling the better, but that doesn't mean Rosa against someone she could actually do a good straight match with is going to benefit from them just whipping each other with a bull rope or dealing with endless distractions from jobber lumberjacks the majority of the audience doesn't even know. Maple Leaf Pro may already be done for 2024, but even with just 2 shows, they made a big impact. Bailey vs. Takeshita is the second best match of 2024 behind Bryan Danielson vs. Zack Sabre Jr. from February 11th, and easily one of the best matches of the decade. I give it 4 3/4 stars out of 5.